In this video, we'll be looking at reciprocal graphs. So reciprocal graphs are another kind of those hard graphs we talked about in the cubics video. Reciprocal graphs have the general equation of y equals 1 over x, but 1 could vary, it doesn't have to stick at 1. This is the graph for y equals 1 over x. So you can see it is basically mirrored across the positive quadrant and then the all negative quadrant here. Another property that reciprocal graphs carry is they all have something called asymptotes. Now you may have heard of this before, you may not have. An asymptote is when a graph goes alongside a line or an axis but never crosses it. So you can see here, these lines, as they get nearer the x and y axes, they get a lot closer, but due to the nature of the equation, they will never actually cross. If we change the top number from 1 to 3, you can see that the graph itself just gets a bit further away from the axes for the time being. So I've marked on quite nicely here, whenever x is 1, y just equals 3. Likewise, when it's minus 1, it equals minus 3. Or if x is 3, you can see here that this fraction is then going to make 1. So the best way, I think, to imagine reciprocal graphs is just sub in some numbers and see what it gets you. They're all going to have fairly similar shapes, so that's not going to change much. If we have a negative reciprocal graph, you can see that the sides are basically just flipped across the y-axis. So rather than in the top right and the bottom left, we have top left and bottom right. And again, this is going to be the same for all negative ones. And also, because we've got a minus 2 on top rather than a minus 1, the same properties that held before with this kind of thing stand here as well. Okay, so hopefully that makes sense. Now, another thing you might be required to do is to draw a reciprocal graph. So, using our coordinate grid that we've got from before, again, we just need to substitute the x numbers into the x here, and it will give us the y values that we require. So, again, like I said before, always start with the positive values because that is the easiest. So if we substitute 2 into this fraction, 2 over 2 is simply 1. So that's going to be our answer. Likewise, if we sub 1 into the fraction, our answer is going to be 2. 0 we're going to come back to. Minus 1 is going to be minus 2, and minus 2 is going to be minus 1. So this is a positive reciprocal, so we know we're going to be looking at this quadrant and this quadrant. And again, the values will tell you that. So when x is 2, y is 1. And when x is 1, y is 2. Likewise, this is the same in the negative quadrant. Now at 0, you'll notice 2 over 0 in a fraction. If you put it in your calculator, you'll get a math error. And that's because you can't divide a number by 0. This is due to the fact that the graph has an asymptote when x is 0. Because when x is 0, that is basically the y-axis. But we know that reciprocal graphs don't touch the y-axis. So if we fill this out, it's just going to look a little bit like this. And that is your final answer. So thank you very much for watching, and I hope that helped.